Hello everybody, welcome to another BTCPay Server Dev call. This one is labeled number 12 for some reason, so we'll stick with that labeling. On today's call, we'll be wrapping up our release 1.5.2. We'll just be doing a very brief retrospective on it, and if something went wrong, what was right. And afterwards, we will discuss new features and our new upcoming big release, major release 1.6.0. So basically, we will be on today's call planning things out for the next release. So yeah, let's get started. We have Andy, Cooks, Dennis, and Bus with us. Anybody else can catch up on the YouTube since it's a little bit tricky for our non-European based friends. So yeah, first item on the agenda, which I'll share in the chat. Just a moment. Is this Cook's chickens that we can hear in the background?
It could be, yeah.
What the fuck?
They ran away from.
Self-sustainable Bitcoiners.
Yeah, they tend to run away from the farm as it gets warmer. So now they're all in the streets running around. Yeah. So don't mind the noise.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get. I would first just like to ask, like, how do you guys feel about 1.5.2? How it went? Were there any things that we could have done better, maybe? My feeling is that it went pretty okay considering the amount of changes and also the big migration that we had. A few people had bugs, but we fixed those quite quickly, I guess. But were there any things in the process that you guys would like to see better, worse, or whatever? How was it? How was
I think in general, I think we did pretty well. Not too many big complaints. Most of the upgrade complaints were around services that weren't directly affected inside BTC Pay. It's like, what was it? Right, the lightning wasn't working. I don't know exactly what happened. Dennis fixed it though, so but I think in general we did it was pretty smooth. Like there wasn't a big fire. Like we didn't have to do a release straight away, like hot fixing stuff. It was more like performance fixes that needed to happen just because the dashboard was a bit slow. But yeah,
Yeah, in general, I agree. Nevertheless, I think it might be worth picking up that release candidate idea that was brought up in the dev channel. I mean, it would be good if we could confidently put out the major release knowing that a few people have tested the release candidate.
yeah, I agree. I think we can do that. The main issue always comes from who is willing to test it, and people come and go, so you can't really rely on people to actually come and test it for you.
Yeah, I get that. Nevertheless, I think with 1.3, 1.4, and in smaller with 1.5 also we had a few bugs, and I think it might help if we could stick with. I mean, during the last releases, we always put out a bug fix release one day after, and I don't know. This doesn't give a really good impression, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So one thing to keep in mind if we start doing RC candidates is once we tag them and they get deployed, people are gonna get a notification right now saying, "Oh, there's a new BTC Pay version available. You should click BTC Pay update and do it."
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to basically do a change so that the update mechanism doesn't recognize those as new updates. But it's gonna take like if we release a release candidate and they're on an older version, it's gonna update anyway. So maybe it's good to keep that in mind. That the next that if even if we do RC releases, people are gonna end up accidentally on the RC release. Um,
Yeah, we don't
unless
have to discuss or solve this now. I just
yeah.
thought it might be worth taking a look and just preventing things like that.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely just try and experiment that for the next version we do pre-releases. And I mean, to do pre-releases, we have to adapt some small stuff here and there, so we can see how it goes. But we can take it with a grain of salt as well, so that if people end up on a pre-release, it's not like, oh, this was completely beta software, you shouldn't have been running it, not our fault, go away.
Yeah.
So we'll just treat let's do a pre-release next for 1.6, but we'll also do it as kind of like like as if we would have done a release for that day.
Yep. Sounds good.
So can I add something? So Batch reached out to me and asked why we did not post before the release in the testers channel so that they can play around with it. So maybe just posting it in the testers channel that we have some people pick it up or not. I'm not sure if we need a release candidate, but maybe reintroducing that test channel should help.
I think it's been a bit spotty with the tester channel, because
Yeah.
we all have features that we want tested, and we post in there, and it's like how am I gonna compel to come and test it for us?
Yeah, so but maybe just before a bigger release that we post it there, and anybody that likes to test picks it up. So
I think
not
we
per
generally do
feature,
that,
but
though.
yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure if it happened last time, but
Maybe we can do it if we have a pre-release. We can definitely just post in there, and just if we have a few days in between that and the main release, and if we give them an easy way to test it, then maybe it's a good enough scenario for people to just try it out and give us feedback.
yeah, I assumed that everybody in the testers channel knows how to test, so maybe that's a bit short-sighted.
Yeah, I think that's a bit optimistic.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so there are two things about this. So our releases are actually tested. We do test them. Like I extensively try to test things basically every single day in the release cycle. But yeah, we definitely need more people, and I don't think introducing release candidate will fix the problem of us needing more people to test things. So no matter if how we call a release, if people don't test it enough, it will be the same problem that we have now as well. So I think the root of the problem is us introducing or reintroducing, actually, because Brit was handling that, but she got very busy lately and she's not really uh, involved in that part, I guess. So we will need to find a dedicated person who will be able to handle user testing, I guess, so that we can catch all of these easier bugs. But no matter how extensively we test things out, there will always be a bug here and there. Like there is no way that a user can, think of every single scenario that happens. But the more people we have involved in the process, the better it will be for us. So I guess, yeah, we can introduce RCs, but also easier way would be to just have somebody actually revive that tester channel. So I think that maybe we can have. I think Marcus was. I think his name is Marcus, but he was like interested in getting involved into that one. So maybe I can reach out to him to see. And if anybody watching this video is interested into leading the testing of the BTCPay server, basically user testing, and those roles involve basically just deploying all of the changes to a test instance, and then people can just register there. Because yeah, as Cook said, not every person is tech savvy enough for deploying their own BTCPay server and then catching up on the releases, creating their own images and things like that. I don't think people know how to do that. We do have people testing things locally, but some of the changes cannot be tested locally. So, Bass, you want a word?
Maybe it's a good idea to add this into the things we're doing with Parker, and mold a new group of rock stars that maybe want to do the testing and the documentation side of things, because around major releases that makes sense in my head.
Sure. I mean, whoever wants to do it. What has been done previously is that Brit would have her own instance and deploy things there, and then just ping the channel whenever something was in need of testing. Even if it was like an open PR, she would deploy it and then just tell people to test things out. So yeah, if somebody can take care of that, maybe I can help them out in the beginning. But yeah, I cannot lead on that one. So we will need to find somebody who is interested in
I'll be
user
happy to help
testing
making
leading.
a start to this.
Yeah, so maybe you and Marcus can team up. Go ahead, Cooks.
Oh, sorry, I misclicked. Trigger happy.
Okay,
I think one more thing. The release candidate stuff might help, especially in terms of that production setups differ quite a bit from what we have as testing and development instances, just because of the data and so on. I think this might help with getting a better feel for how things work in production. Because as you said, we try to test everything, but yeah, unfortunately, we won't be able to pinpoint every possible error scenario.
Yeah, it's tricky as well because when you test locally, like I'm constantly nuking my database, right? Like some of the features you built, they are either not compatible between branches, so you have to clear data every now and then, and it's usually a smaller set. But when you end up testing on a server somewhere, the data is constant, but you can't debug stuff easily. So, like when something breaks, it's hard to pinpoint where it's breaking and how it's breaking and why it's breaking. So, there are drawbacks to everything. Maybe, and I don't know if this is completely possible at all, actually, but maybe we can have a database somewhere where we connect to it from our local BTCPay instances. I don't know if that's a thing that we can do. That might help us, like, just keep a huge data set between all the devs that use it. Um, any thoughts on that? No. Okay.
I think it's a good idea. I asked for a similar thing when I was going through some of the document pages and was figuring out the dashboards, maximum values in the recent transactions and stuff like that, the 7 days bit. I wanted to see what happened with, for example, 1 million in a week, and I couldn't reproduce this simply because the fake data button creates historical data, and there's no data set available. So I would actually like it if we could do this.
Yeah, let's see. Maybe we can. I mean, for this specific scenario, we can probably make the cheat button a bit more elaborate. Uh, yeah, we can probably come up with some more cheating systems there,
Yeah,
like
if
either
we,
generate dozens of hundreds of thousands of transactions and stuff to see how well it can handle the dashboard. But of course, it's gonna spam the shit out of something there. So
I
yeah,
think what might help with that. So as you said, one frequently nukes the database, and for myself, I wrote a basic script that uses the Greenfield API to set up an instance after I've nuked everything, so that I get a few stores and users and invoices and so on. I think we should eat our own Greenfield API dog food there and potentially write some more scripts to to establish some basic test data, so that even when new devs come into the project and they want some basic seed data, they can just fire up the scripts and have an instance that doesn't feel completely empty.
sure, yeah, we can definitely do something like that. Like maybe even do it like as soon as they Docker, no, not Docker Compose, but as soon as they start BTC Pay on the first run on Rich Test, maybe just spin up some like either like your Bash script or something, and we'll just generate a bunch of junk data everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sounds good.
Yeah. Anyway, maybe we should keep going with the agenda. I think we haven't touched any of that stuff yet.
So let's
Yeah.
try to move and plan out the release and just think a little bit more about this specific idea of having, I guess, a better way to test things out.
Yeah.
Uh,
Pav, do you think before we start planning for 1.6, I was thinking that maybe we should do another small release, just because there's been a lot of minor bug fixes and stuff around.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
what do you guys think? Do you guys have anything that you would like merged in before we do a small release again? Uh, I'm talking to you mostly, Dennis.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at the pull requests, and I don't think I have anything urgent open. As we said already, most of them are by you.
Yeah, yeah. So I need to get through that, but hopefully 1.6 will fix some of this.
I guess the only urgent thing, and I see quite a few people reporting, is ride lightning bug. If we can
That's
get,
merged already.
it's already
Yeah,
merged. Okay, so
yeah. People
basically
just
they
need to
just
update. Yeah.
Cooks was on a merging spree this morning, so all
awesome,
my
awesome.
PRs
So
are merged.
basically, if anybody has a problem, they should just do BTCPay update and it would update, right?
Supposedly, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
the root cause for this issue was in the Docker setup. We needed to upgrade RTL, and for the app, I added one more PR that we don't crash and report the error.
Yeah. That one will be in 1.5.2, I think.
Okay. Let's see. Like I mean, we always do minor releases in between big ones, but the focus of this call is just to like plan a big picture out, and then maybe next week we can, discuss smaller things. But yeah, I agree. Let's push those small fixes that we already have, so that we have like a clean way of starting with a new release. So I've started already like grouping things out from we have quite a lot of issues, comments. So I try to document all of these. I'll post it a link, even though you have it in that Google Doc, but I'll post a link to the project board basically, which in a way tried to group things out by priority. My impression, just by looking at these issues, and I will give you guys a chance to also just post your opinion about it. But my impression was that in this release, we should mostly try to improve the dashboard based on the feedback, because we did have like quite a few requests of having a lightning thing showing in the dashboard. We had like people complaining that they would like to see fiat or store default currency denomination in the dashboard, so I documented these. And then features like having store email functionality. So combining what we have for the dashboard, but also adding very old feature requests. And one of those was like create and display a digital receipt. And then we had like store emails, which were like one of the most requested feature. People really want to have like a way for to send basically, even though even if it's an automatic like generic email, people would appreciate to have that functionality. And then like a long awaited add request buyer address. Like those are the things that people really keep requesting, and I think we should focus on ironing those requests out before we, I guess, start adding some crazy new things in 1.7. So I'm not sure if you agree with this. I'm just curious, what kind of features would you guys like to see, and does this approach, at least the core of it, make sense?
So the digital receipt thing, I think I started something already. I think there's a pull request in draft mode, so that's already already started that, and I also did kind of a proof of concept of this in a separate plugin that I released this week, I think, which is basically an event system integration, which generates a receipt as soon as an invoice is paid, and you can use that receipt to, you know, go for an event, and it has a QR code and all that magic on it. But we can create something a bit more simplistic than that. I don't think there's much to it right now. basically, as soon as you pay an invoice, you'll have either a new link or the redirect link will just take you to the receipt page. I don't know if there's any more input from you guys around that.
I don't have any specific input. I just noticed that people really would like to have like a public way for a customer to access the invoice, and even though it can be probably a privacy concern, or in a way, it should be like up to for merchants to who would
Yeah.
like to provide like a way for buyer to basically see a receipt after paying an invoice. So to me, that
Yeah.
seems like a very basic and core functionality that is a no-brainer, and we should add it.
So there's two main. So one thing that I see with this is that if people use, so a lot of people configure the BTCPay checkout experience, right, and then they have a redirect URL in the checkout, so that once the payment is done, BTCPay redirects you to their thank you page or something, right? So if you have this flow, a receipt becomes kind of hard to give to the user because they're just completely redirected elsewhere, and then they lose track of the URL inside BTCPay. Unless the the integrator kind of shows the URL themselves manually. So that's one of my main concerns around this digital receipt thing. And also, what kind of data should we be showing on this receipt? Like, showing transactions might be um, too sensitive. Like, if somebody paid on a on-chain wallet, showing the transaction on there might be too revealing. I don't know. Like, even just showing, I guess, the invoice ID and then showing an order ID or something like that, and then I don't know, a check mark or something is probably good enough. But up to you guys.
Yeah, I agree with the last point. It's tricky because well, for one, you might want to have that data on something you print out or need for your own taxes, bookkeeping, whatever. And on the other hand, you don't want that information to be publicly available on the internet.
Yeah, somebody could try and just, index your website or just brute force through random. I mean, brute forcing your URL is not that easy because it's just a long string of characters. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's tricky, that one.
Yeah,
I wouldn't. Yeah.
we should maybe think about this some more. And for the first problem, I think it would be a good idea to have a convention where similar to the checkout link where we have the invoice ID. I think to access the receipt via the invoice ID as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would do it so, the same checkout link and then just slash receipts or something. And then
Yeah.
people can always, I guess we can always return it in the API, so it's easier enough for them to display the link on their thank you page. But if they don't have a redirect URL, I guess we could always make the close button or whatever we call it. I think we call it return to store. We can always make that a receipt, go view receipts or something. Um, yeah, it's tricky. I don't know how to integrate it directly inside the invoice checkout page without breaking some users' flow.
So this can play with the store emails nicely.
Yeah,
So
that too.
the way I see it, we did have, I'm not sure if you guys remember, but we did have a way, by default, when BTCPay Server started, we did have a way for people to preview the invoice basically, but we removed them because of that same concerns that Danny said, like privacy concerns. But
Yeah.
again, some merchants really do need that sort of information, and it should be like opt-in. Would you like to provide a receipt for your customers? They check a box, and if they really want it, they can have it. Otherwise, like people who don't need that can just don't use that feature. Basically, it will be like opt-in.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. Like maybe for now we can just display it as a receipt or print the receipt or whatever. But in 1.7, we will be redesigning our checkout page, hopefully, so maybe we can cater it so that it also has that better option to just, print the receipt or preview receipt if that option is enabled. Then with the store emails, it can play in nicely. So you get an email, here's your receipt. Some like countries, I believe it was actually Dennis, it was somebody from Germany actually requesting this feature, because like by law you need a way to provide a receipt. I'm not sure if this is true, but they did provide a link to a specific like page which in German explains things. But yeah,
Yeah,
I would,
as I said, it might also be required for you to have the transaction ID or something like that, or the invoice bold 11 also on there, or at least it might be good to have a way to have this information somewhere on a sheet of paper somewhere, so that weird German bookkeepers have that with them.
Yeah, it's tricky. Uh, it's hard to know what the requirements are on a country basis still. So I don't know, like, should we be displaying the on-chain address? Should we be displaying the actual transaction ID? Should we be displaying a Bolt 11 invoice? Should we be displaying the the pre-image that gets exposed from the Bolt 11 proof of payment thing? Go ahead and end it.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, for example, in my country, in Austria, I also need, for every payment, I need to write down the transaction ID, or at least the receiving address. But I'm not sure if we should provide everything in that sense, that we provide the complete invoice, for example, but more like like you said, a payment receipt. So maybe the amount, and make everything optional, so that users or store owners can select if they want to include the transaction ID, if they want to include the receiving address. And so they can decide what shows up. And by default, nothing shows up, or maybe the bare minimum. But so they can decide what should show up. And also from where we display it. So I think the slash receipt is a good idea, but we could also, instead of showing just the green check mark, show the receipt directly in the invoice page, so to speak. Or we just show a link, click here to go to receipt page or something like that, even if we
Yeah.
have a redirect. So because
Yeah, I
now
think-
it's just a green check mark, and we have some space there where we can put things, I think.
Yeah, that's a good idea, and we should definitely consider this when redesigning the invoice or checkout. Regarding the data, I think this isn't something the merchant should decide, but rather the user, because it might depend, as Pav said, it might depend on the country you're in and what kind of invoice this is. If this is for your business, you might need to have have all the data on there. And
Yeah.
I think we need to think about this some more.
Yeah, it's tricky to do, right? Because I was also thinking from an integration perspective, you can put something in the metadata, and then, for example, under, let's say you create a field under metadata called receipt data, and that will get, like, that could be a whole complex structure of data that you want to display on the receipt page, but that's still on an integration side, and we can't even do it on a default level. um, like, I was thinking, like, if you find, for example, if you have an invoice, and I'm not talking about a BTCPay invoice, I'm talking about a payable invoice with a reference code on it that you do with your accounting software. You would want that shown on this invoice, for example, or something. You could put this inside this metadata field to show it there. All the stuff that you're legally kind of obligated to do. But it's still very very tricky to get right. Like I'm still uncertain of what will be needed to make this, suitable enough. Maybe the best thing is, because right now the invoice page, once it's been paid and settled, you can't go back to it. I think it 404 is right now. So maybe what we can do is you can go back to it and it will redirect you to the receipt page.
Yeah. Also, I don't think we should provide a complete invoice, but the bare minimum receipt. Like, I'm not sure what Stripe does. They only show that you paid something and the amount, but no customer details or something like that. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure when we have an integration, normally you have the invoice generated in the store or in the integration itself. So you have anyway full control over it, but I think this is more like they want some receipt for that the payment actually happened, and this is missing when you have a store integration, I could imagine.
Yeah,
So I'm not
nevertheless,
sure if we should go really crazy here, but maybe it's enough to just have some kind of transaction,
Maybe we
confirmation.
can do the most basic. Maybe we can do the most basic level. Show invoice ID. And then the ID paid, and then make a little pretty check mark like it is right now on the checkout page, but it's a more permanent thing. And then we'll expand it depending on who uses it and what their people are actually requesting from it.
Yeah, I think we can also do it like we did with the dashboard, come up with a better version of what we have, put it out there, and then basically iterate on the feedback we get. We don't have to solve it all at once, and there are quite a few quick fixes we can apply and have something better than what there is already.
Yeah, keep in mind we can also do it so that the receipt page, if let's say you paid an invoice and you have the receipt page and it just shows, oh, you paid this, you paid this invoice, and it doesn't show any data, and you need to show this to a customer support agent at the company, you can give them the receipt page, and if this support agent has an account on BTCPay, we can show extra data on the receipt page, like way more proof. Like if you're logged in into BTCPay and you're a store admin of this invoice, and you're on this receipt page, you can show the transaction IDs, you can show the Bolt 11 invoice. We can do all the crazy data we want then. So we can limit it on that scale as well.
Yeah, that might be a good idea for a start. Yep.
So are we adding
All
this
right.
one? Are we adding this one in this release, or if so, would any of you guys like to tackle it?
I think I already have a pull request. So I'll just finish off a very basic version of it, and then we can iterate on it. I don't know if we'll manage to put it into 1.6 because it depends on how we feel about it once it's done. But yeah, sure, I'll do it. I'll do the basics at least. I mean, I already have a pull request, but my design skills are gonna be super ugly on purpose.
Okay, that's why we will have better testing process, and then I run it out before we release, so that Dennis and Distra can also help us with that. Okay, well, that one's probably going into the next release. How do you guys feel? We discussed this about yesterday on GitHub, like payment button being extracted from the store and becoming a basically a system plugin. It seems we are all in consensus of this one, but I'm not sure the amount of work it will be required to get it done. So, Cooks, you said it shouldn't be that hard, right?
No, it shouldn't be that hard, but keep in mind that we can't just remove it, so it has to stay kind of like installed by default inside BTCPay, and you won't be able to remove it just because it's so ingrained and so many people use it already. So technically, all we have to do really is just move it from, I think, from the payment navigation section to plugins, right, or / integrations or whatever, and that's about it.
I think the pay button is the easiest of the apps to migrate to a plugin, and I also think it would be good to start with that. I think it's easiest because it doesn't have its own database entries and data structure and so on. Nevertheless, I'd really like to also move the point of sale and crowdfunding stuff into plugins as well.
That could be interesting because I've noticed as well. I've noticed some people are getting very confused when they install BTCPay the first time, and then you tell them, "Oh, you can install a plugin for this feature and integration." They're like, "Oh, will it show up in the apps?" So there is this confusion that apps and plugins and integrations, and I think they should all be kind of converged into one. And I think plugins would probably be the best way to look at it.
Yeah, I think so too. And an idea I had for the migration would be so that we don't distract existing users and maybe destroy something in the database or so. Maybe we can just port them over and make new apps and new crowdfund, etc., available as something different. So we just for now leave everything in place with the apps we have and just add them inside the plugin system as well. Because this also concerns another point in here, which we have, putting the point of sale data to the dashboard. For this, we would need to extend and also change the point of sale code and data we collect and so on. And I think we might end up with a different data structure than what we have right now.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, let's look into it a bit to see what we can do. Like the first thing, like the best exercise you can do to see how easy this can be is to just literally try to move the
To have a
apps.
migration.
It's like the easiest thing is to try and move these apps into a separate project file and have them as system plugins. And I think you'll notice that it's very hard to do without breaking something.
I think for the code part, this might work well. Nevertheless, I'm not really confident with the migration stuff. So
Yeah.
you can talk more about this, but I wouldn't feel well versed enough with Entity Core to migrate existing apps over.
Yeah. So migration will be super tricky to do for sure, because we have like you have this problem where of the chicken and egg kind of thing where you have the data inside BTCPay, but in the next but in the next version we want to remove that data. But to remove that data, we need to save it first to move it to another to the plugin system. So it's like, how do we do it? Do we have to keep the data there? Do we have to remove it? Do we just hide it and ignore it? Do we just read the same data and just pretend that it's actually just a plugin?
Yeah, that's what why I brought up the idea of starting anew within the plugin system. Nevertheless, this leaves us with the problem: what do we do with existing apps and so on?
Yeah, it's because imagine somebody has been running BTCPay on 1.5, right? And they set up a crowdfunding app, and they're happy and they're using it publicly and everything, and they just ignore the next 3 or 4 versions. All of a sudden, they update, and boom, all their data is gone. Their crowdfunding app is gone. Their stats are gone. They'll have the invoice is still there, but they won't have the crowdfunding app and the records around it.
Yeah, I think we need to see what this might turn into once we start working on it, and how confident we feel about the migration part, for example.
Yeah, the migration is the trickiest part here for sure. I think we'll have to experiment with a few things to see which one feels the best.
Whoops, your data is gone, but we gained some insight here.
maybe we can. Yeah, never mind. Actually, I mean, I was thinking maybe we can export it into a JSON file, and then the user can we can keep the JSON file on behalf of the user, and the apps will disappear from the database,
Yeah.
and then the plugin will allow you to import that JSON file at least.
So basically, we would have a frozen state of each app.
Yeah, kind of. It's not even a frozen state because the invoices will still be there. We can still kind of link them from the plugin. Like historical invoices can still be counted, but the data will live in a JSON at that moment. Yeah, we freeze that part, like
Yeah.
the description, the items, and that stuff.
The ideal scenario would be to move everything over and not have an old state somewhere
Yeah.
anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, I mean, the concept of moving something over means, um, okay, now crowdfunding is a plugin, and let's say you have 5 crowdfunding apps set up. You update, the crowdfunding is gone, but the user still has to go and consciously install the crowdfunding app plugin to show up there, and then they have to, like, if they don't know that the crowdfunding app got moved to a plugin, they won't install it. They'll think
Yeah.
it's still there until they realize, oh, all my users are going to 404 pages.
Yeah, but that's why I'd start with making them system plugins, at least as step one. And we would also have the problem of the 404 URLs you mentioned, because right now plugins live under their own URL structure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's definitely
quite
a
a few
tricky one.
things to tackle there. Nevertheless, I'd really like to work on that, and I think it would put us in a good position for future development if we clearly separate things between core and plugins.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree as well. But just Dennis, since you will be working on this, make sure to coordinate with Umar as well, because I think he's working on providing API for apps. So just let him know about it if like his basically efforts will be wasted. But yeah, please
I
coordinate
don't.
with him. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to coordinate. Nevertheless, efforts won't be wasted because we already have an idea of how to provide APIs in the plugins as well, and this works and can be documented. So basically, stuff needs to be ported, and yeah. Another thing I would like to bring up, which might help with this, and which I would like to integrate in 1.6, is the whole backup and restore structure. We don't need to discuss it here. Nevertheless, from the issues, I get the impression that people really miss this, and I already started working on this earlier this week.
Okay, is that like purely on the Docker repo?
Yeah, for now it is.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how that would work out in real life, because of how, like, I don't trust people. I don't trust people how they handle their deployment. Honestly, I can totally imagine somebody will click on the backup script, wipe their server, like, oops, uh, I, I try to restore it somewhere, completely screw something up, and then we get blamed with that.
The current backup script doesn't work, and there is no restore process, so we can only get better from here.
Okay, that's fair enough. Plus, now it's a bit better as well, since NBX is using Postgres as well. So at least that's one less thing to worry about in terms of state. That should be good.
Yeah, I discussed some things around that with Wouter already, and as I said, we don't need to discuss it here. Nevertheless, I'd like to work on this in 1.6.
Cool. I have my own feature creep for 1.6, but I'll keep it towards the end since we're running out of time.
So yeah, I can share a screen just to visualize everything, but we are pretty much, I think, I'm not sure if you guys can see it. Let me know.
Wow, light mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, mine switches like based on the system settings. So I assigned already, like as we were talking, so basically everything here is already assigned that we talked to in the roadmap. The only thing left is refactor authorize UI. Like the issue has been dragging along, I think from 0.4 1.4, sorry, but I'm not sure if this is something that maybe Wouter can help with this one. Maybe I can ask him, but besides that, maybe Andit can post us a little bit of update on Joomla, Virtuemart integration, but seems like we had a good structure or have a good structure in place, and then from here on next week we'll just keep adding things. I do need to open an issue for a few things that we mentioned, mostly about the apps that we want to move and the backup script. I think that issue is actually documentation, not on the main repo, so I will also make sure to have them just so that we don't forget, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you want to post some updates maybe on the
Yeah,
Joomla?
I already wanted to finish the integration. Unfortunately, a bit of client work holded me up. So, but I will try to finish this week finally, so we can release some first release for Joomla. Yeah, and like I said, let's check then for feedback, and if users are missing some features, I decided to have the order state management inside, which I plan to not do it first, but I think it's important because Joomla also has different order states and you need some kind of mapping. So that's in now, but yeah, other than that, it's pretty basic. So you can't override the store settings with timeout and so on, because I think it's fine for now that they can set it in the store. If there's demand, I can build it, but I think it's better to finish that one with a release and then start with the open card one, and we see which one is used and what users want. So I think that's better. Yeah.
Great news.
Yeah, sounds good.
If you need any help on our end, like in terms of documentation or whatever, Bus and I here are happy to help with those as well. Just let us know. Maybe we can create once it's like stable. Maybe then we'll probably create same video like we did with Shopify. And just one, I just remembered, Cooks, we still have that issue with Shopify order ID that we need to figure out. It's like a few people already have complained about Shopify ID not matching their BTCPay Server ID.
Oh shit,
Basically,
yeah.
them not
Yeah,
being able to even find an order in question, so it's a little bit of mess. So that one I think should be also on high priority list because it's
Yeah, can you add it to the 1.6 list?
yeah, I added it. If we can do it quicker than 1.6, that also could be helpful. But
Yeah,
at least
maybe.
in 1.6.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, hopefully I'll do it for 1.5.2 then, and then I'll do a release after that. One thing else I wanted to mention as well is I was also working on a pull request as well to add uh, a, a limited degree of support for LNURL withdrawal and say pull payments now that we have auto approve. Um, so basically, this one lets you, instead of going through the UI for pull payments, you can just have a QR code as well, and you can scan that with the Lightning wallet, and it will just handle everything through it without having to post a Bolt 11 invoice to the pull payment page, claim it, and all that stuff. But it does require a few conditions for the pull payment when it's created. So I don't know if it's useful or not. Basically, it needs that when you create a pull payment, it has to be with auto approval for the payouts. It has to be in the same currency, so basically it has to be BTC pull payment. Has to support Lightning as well. But yeah, I don't know if this is useful for you in Ellen Bank, Dennis.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I know this is awesome. I also worked on the release for the NFC plugin, so now you can have. I think it should work with the next release of BTC Pay. It was just some bugs with. It's not here. It's in the.
Yeah, I remembered in another repo. Okay.
It's in the plugins one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, there's that, and also for 1.6, I want to try and target adding some more payout processor functionality just to make it a bit more useful as well. Hopefully, like either what was it? Basically, like only do batch transactions if there are more than X amount, or that kind of stuff. Maybe even have one to batch them inside the payout inside the pay join stuff, so that it becomes a bit more efficient. That kind of stuff. But we'll see.
Yeah, I also remembered as you were speaking about plugins, we did want to change the integrations within the stores, to store plugins. Is this something that we should do also in this?
It's
I
just
tagged it.
renaming, right?
Yeah, I think Dennis put a very nice comment on it. I hopefully can find it maybe, but
Yeah, I think we discussed this in the design meeting and came up with something that I wrote as a comment.
call it basically store plugins. So it's just as Dennis said, adapting the words on that page, and story latent plugins can then have an entry point where people can use them, because sometimes certain plugins don't have like a way for a user to access them. So can we do that in this release? What do you guys think? Is that something on to me it's something like a cleanup that we sometimes really need should do, but
It sounds like you're just renaming the.
Yes, it's in the end it's just wording updates.
Then
we
it
don't
should
have
do
to
that.
change anything internal.
Okay, I will add Dennis here just in case, but okay. So on my end, I think that's all. Pretty much, I'm just proud that we have so many different now people, tackling things as well. Team is growing, it seems. So whoever is watching the stream, feel free to join our development channel if you have some questions of what we've discussed so far, and just to stay up to date with BTCPay Server and what we're building on. Guys, are there any other things that you wanted to discuss, release or not?
Yeah, just because you brought it up, we only saw the contributors list for the app right now, but for the website and so on, we also gained a few people that helped on that front. So thanks for that.
Yes, Bas is doing a great job actually onboarding people as well. So,
We
and I
got
think
some
like
translators for the Shopify video going on. We got the Turkish translation up. Portuguese is coming. Dutch is coming. German is coming. So lots of new people.
yeah, I noticed like as soon as I just had a simple point of entry to people, like if you're front like for specific skill, like if you're front-end dev, here is what you can do for BTCPay. It contained like a bunch of issues from different repositories, and people seem to found it useful. So maybe I'll do that as well for, I don't know, maybe for designers or backend or whatever we think. Though backend is a little bit hard, but like have issues like that. But also, I noticed that people are also contacted me. Hey, how can I contribute? So it seems that these calls that we are recording and spreading the word is really getting people hooked up to come and join us. So I do have personally quite a few. I think 2 more that are interested in contributing. They're just
I got
figuring
2
things
or
out.
3
So.
as well.
insane. That's awesome news. Okay, I have like all of these issues that are basically unanswered. We do have quite a few stale, so no need to go through them. But if somebody has a time and just want to, reply to these people, it would be, I think, good just to see if there is something we can do. Some of them are for older releases, so I try to like ask them if the mistake is still happening, and then like if they don't get back to us, probably they abandoned it. So I will close the issues. But if you have the time, just go through these. That's all that I had. Okay, guys, let's then keep pumping. I'm excited about this release. Lots of new things, and some of them are the ones that are really requested. I think some of them are like requested for 3 years now. So hopefully we'll make or just keep making people happy with updates. And thank you for joining in. Other contributors will share this with them together with notes. And yeah, let's keep on building. Thanks for joining. And yeah, thanks for Cooks for chickens.
Yeah, thanks.
Guys.
See ya.
Cheers.
Bye,
See you
everyone.
guys.
See you.
Bye bye.
For too long, we've relied on trusted third parties to process digital payments. The world is changing, and so are your customers. As cash payments decrease, digital payments become the standard. But existing apps charge transaction fees and lack privacy. BTCPay is a Bitcoin payment platform. It gives control over your business back to you, helping people achieve financial freedom with donations, payments, and more. Help your family and onboard your friends. Use BTCPay to host multiple stores and become a payment platform of your own. While the world changes around you, stay in control of your finances. It's simple to use, censorship resistant, and completely free. This is more than a payment platform. It's transforming digital payments as fast as the world around us. For too long, we've relied on trusted third parties to process digital payments. Our trust has been broken. We've made them obsolete. The world is changing, and so are your customers. As cash payments decrease, digital payments become the standard. But if you do not hold your keys, you do not hold control of your money. BTCPay is an entire payments platform, helping people achieve financial freedom with donations, payments, and more. Help your family and onboard your friends. Use BTCPay to host multiple stores and become a payment platform of your own. While the world changes around you, stay in control of your finances. It's simple to use, censorship resistant, and completely free. This is more than a payment platform. It's transforming digital payments as fast as the world around us.